Good morning. I'm Chris Allen, Jim's brother-in-law, and my wife is Kathy's sister. On behalf of Kathy, her children Katrina, Emily, and Jennifer, their husbands Paul, Brady, and Elliot, and Kathy and Jim's grandkids, thank you for being here to remember Jim Westbrook. And I also want to thank Brookridge for allowing us to use the service. So just a quick overview of what's covered and proceed here. There's some thoughts about Jim. Then Ron Booth said that Jim and Kathy will have some remarks, and after that, we will have an open mic. So I welcome you to share thoughts about Jim. You may notice that there are people here wearing red shirts. This is because Jim was, as he called it, a color challenge. Red is one color Jim could see, for the most part. Kathy told me that when their kids were younger, they would wear red shirts and trips to keep track of all the kids. At the zoo one time, one of their kids wandered off, and the benefit of those red shirts paid off. They started calling her name and looking for her, and then someone told them they saw a girl with a red shirt and pointed, she went that way. So again, thank you all for being here. I was thinking back, when did I first meet Jim? Right for this, 1980. So I've known Jim for a few years. I think it was a family Christmas party, and that was a long time ago. But it got me thinking about, how do you go from just meeting someone for the first time, and you get to this point, that is deep caring love for that person. And as I thought about this, the one word that kept coming to mind was connection. Jim just had a way of connecting people. You may be aware that Jim liked to invest in the stock market. Well, what you may not be as aware of is that he quietly invested in people. And that lasting returns that are evident today by always sitting here. He was generous to so many people in so many ways. And he used those skills to help people. Like his talent for numbers. You may be aware that Jim was a numbers guy. I'm a word guy. So I really appreciate how Jim could help me navigate the world of numbers if I had a question. It seemed like over and over you could throw any math problem at him, in a few seconds you know the answer. And I still feel like getting out my calculator. And his skills with numbers was evident as treasurer of Brookridge. And then there's his building and construction skills. Years ago, I saw him turn a garage on Little Platte Lake in northern Michigan into a cottage that was enjoyed years by children and friends. He often applied those skills to help countless people build, fix, or renovate. When we bought our house in Frankfort, Michigan in 2016, Jim and Kathy were there, ready to assist. We saw this firsthand. They helped us get our house ready to move into, and they helped paint the interior of our house. I've never seen anyone wield a paint roller like Jim. Fast, efficient, and better than professional. And I vividly recall when Jim helped me refinish the oak floors of our house, he kept telling me, you know, we can finish it. We can do this. We can do this. Who else would spend days on their hands and knees with a belt sander with me, helping me get those floors ready to varnish? And Jim would think of everything on a project. We created a lot of sawdust when we did that sanding. So when it was time to take a break or quit, he pulled out a leaf blower. And this big cloud of sawdust started going over the neighborhood. And I think you're still wondering where that cloud came from. That was Jim. Always willing to use his skills to help a neighbor, a coworker, a friend, or family. His work ethic and caring for people made him well respected by his coworkers at Ford Credit. Elliot mentioned that when he worked in the mailroom at Ford Credit, he heard firsthand how many people just respected Jim. As a father, Jim invested in his children. His kids shared with me some thoughts about their dad. Determined was one word used to describe Jim. He would do everything he could to win, particularly if he said, "I'm going to beat you." Emily told me about how a coworker at Ford told Jim she could beat him in a 5K race. He accepted the challenge, even though he wasn't a runner at the time. He willed himself to beat her. And after that, he went on to run half marathons. No matter what was in front of him, he took on the challenge and then tried to excel at it. Jim often took time to play games and have fun with his kids, but that did not stop his competitive spirit. Jennifer mentioned that as kids, when they played Monopoly with Jim, they didn't even think about trying to beat him. I mean, come on, Monopoly is a game about numbers and money, right? The real competition for the kids was who could last the longest against Jim and who would be the last kid standing. He encouraged his kids and pushed them to do better. He took an interest in what interested his kids and tried to nurture that. Jennifer told me about how Jim went with her to science exhibits during a trip to Epcot to learn about the physics behind the rides, because he knew that's what interested her. And Jim liked to laugh and have a good time. He tried to teach his kids humor. Katrina mentioned that when Jim received a tepid response from his kids after telling a joke, which quite often meant of him just laughing at something he said, he would say, "You don't know funny." But she added that his humor was sometimes tempered by things they did that would make Jim's hair gray. Like the time when Jim had just finished the woodwork in the bedroom of the cottage, and the kids put a hole in the door by playing a game called Golf Whacker, which I guess explained to me was it's a classic Westbrook game of dodgeball type, involving a metal car being flung across the floor with the goal of hitting your feet and knocking you out. Sounds vicious. Then there was this fascination Jim had with these characters, like Mr. Bill from Saturday Night Live. Some of us are old enough to remember that. And Gumby, and of course, the Grinch. He brought his fondness for the Grinch to Florida. He sure got great enjoyment out of all the Grinch surprises left at his door. Oh, how he could make you laugh and keep things light. He had a great sense of humor. We always got a laugh out of sharing the iconic line from the Blues Brothers movie. It's 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas and half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark and we're wearing sunglasses. To which he would reply, "Hit it." Then there was the line I often heard him quote from one of his favorite movies, The Godfather. It was just crack me up when he'd say, "I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse." That was always fun to hear a special laugh after that. Jim was a great husband, dad, grandpa. He dearly loved his family. He loved spending time with his grandkids. He took time to teach them life skills, to play with them, to have fun with them. He dearly loved each one of his grandkids. We know Jim liked problem solving. He was a peacemaker who liked to find solutions. He was quick to apply that skill set to the grandkids. When babysitting their first grandchild, who had a reputation for taking off his pants and diaper after putting him into bed, Jim solved the problem by putting tennis shoes on him. Katrina said Jim was so impressed with himself when they returned home and found her son asleep with tennis shoes on. He always had an interest in finding solutions to problems, particularly that meant helping people. Just a week ago, he signed up for another clinical study on pancreatic cancer. This was the third study Jim signed up for. And it was that whole idea of it might benefit someone if he participated in that study. He never did anything halfway. He always put forth his full effort. He always put forth his full effort to family, friends, coworkers. Wherever he was, he gave it his all. He had a solid work ethic, coupled with a strong sense of helping people. Jim was fond of quoting a line from an Eminem song. The quote goes like this, and don't worry, I'm not going to try to sing it like that Detroit rapper. So the quote is, look, if you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip? These were the things characteristic of Jim. Things that quietly built connections with family and friends. And that was evident when they started building connections here at Brookridge. Jim applied his competitive spirit here with pickleball, sometimes beating people half his age. Not to name names, but Emily said Jim whipped her. He joined the bike club and connected with more people. Then he saw he could make a difference by running for the Brookridge board. And he became treasurer. He just wasn't one to sit on the sidelines. Once again, he built more connections, lasting connections with so many people. Some of you, I think the battery's going. Some of you like me.
I didn't understand that.
Okay. Okay, how long you have known him? Frustration with technology. It's a connection to the gym that brings us. There. Okay, where were we? Some of you like me for decades, others for only a few years. No matter how long you've known them, it's our connection to Jim that brought us together this morning. We are here because of our love and caring for him, for Kathy, and for his family. He's a caring man, a husband, father, grandfather, brother, uncle, friend, so many things to so many people. Technically, he's my brother-in-law, but he's like a brother to me. At our way, we would want more time with him. Kathy shared with me this week that many people told her they were praying for a miracle, that Jim would be healed from his cancer. And she added, it was through cancer that they found God, and that is God's miracle. She also shared with me Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. It is our connection to Jim that brings us here today, and that connection lives on in all of us. Today, at this moment, we are connected by our loss, our shared grief. Matthew 5:4 says, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. And the Greek word for mourn in this passage means a passionate outcry for someone greatly loved. Our love for Jim is evident here in this room today. We are all connected by that love. And in our passionate outcry and our grief and the days and months ahead, we can comfort each other every morning. Our connection to Jim lives on after today. In our connection to each other. And I want to encourage you to carry on Jim's legacy by doing everything you can to extend a helping hand to one another, to help build one another up. Our connection with each other. To express our love for Jim and our love and caring for each other. May his memory live on in all of us. I want to leave you with a scripture verse. Here are the words of Jesus in John 14:1-3. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. Ron Boots will make some remarks.
Hello, folks. Thanks for coming, and thank you all the people live streaming. Thank you for watching. So, Jim and I were go-to buddies when we met only about 4 years ago. And I'm back in Wisconsin, and I know Jim's going to Jim a lot. And when he passed, I said to Kathy, is it okay if I say a few words at Jim's celebration to life? Kathy said, I can't see it happening. And I thought maybe she didn't hear me. Kathy, can I say a few words at Jim's celebration of life? Kathy said, you can't say a few words about anything. Talk all you want. So open mic, fans. Look out. Here we go. So before I start talking about Jim, I want to tell you a little story. Okay? And you're all involved in the story. You all need to think about this for a little bit. So you don't have to put your hands up or answer, but I think you've all been walking in a cemetery before, right? Sometime in your life, you're maybe visiting someone who passed away, somebody you respected, and so you're walking to the headstone, but your eyes kind of wander around a little bit, right? And you're kind of looking at some of the other stones. You're kind of looking around, and you're kind of thinking, these other stones, what are some of the possible things you would look at in a stone that really has no meaning to you? And I ask this question to a lot of people. And some people say, well, I like looking at the names. Maybe it's the name that's kind of familiar to me. Somebody kind of connects the dots. And other people will say, I like to look at the dates, because they got the date they were born, and they got the date they passed away. And I'll say to those people, I'm just going to guess what the next thing you do is. I said, with those dates, you do the math, right? Yeah, you subtract to see how old they were when they passed away. They said, yeah, it's interesting. Well, I'm walking to where I'm going to go. This is kind of something they do. Now, tell people like that, if you're one of them, and you might be, that really, if that's what you're looking at, you're kind of missing the whole point. You're kind of missing the whole point of that headstone. So the whole point is that little tiny dash between when they were born and when they passed away. That's their life. That's their legacy. That dash is the most important thing in the headstone. Just like if you look at the picture for it outside, you can see it from here. So the Jim's dash. Okay? Jim's life. Okay? So I just got a few observations about Jim's life. I've only known him like 4 years. I'm from Wisconsin, I met down here. A lot of people say 4 years. What can you possibly know in 4 years? I mean, look at the history. Chris, it just blows me away with all the history. But what you got to remember is when you're in a community like this, okay, you're always together. You see each other all the time. So I kind of use the analogy, it's like a dog year. 1 dog year equals 7 human years. 1 year in the community is like 7 years in real life. So I think I've known Jimmy between 28 and 30 years. Okay. So here goes. The first thing that I want to say about Jim is the talks we had when we would do different medical appointments. Jim told me a lot about his family. One thing he told me about his family, just when he was a kid, he said, man, that grandma could cook. Oh, man. We go to grandma's every Sunday, and those grape leaves. And I have to call a timeout because I really don't know what a grape leaf is, and then he goes into details on what a grape leaf is. Okay? But that's what I know about Jim. Big smile on his face. I always look at people's expressions when they tell me a story, just to see how into it they are. So the next thing we have with Jim on one of these drives down, Jim was telling me about his high school football career. And Jim was fast. He was fast. If you ever think about Jim, one comic character they always liked was the Flash. So I was talking about the Flash. Jim was a Flash in high school. That man could run. That kid could run. And the football coach noticed that early on. The football coach said, Jim, you're my running back. You are the man. You're my running back. High school football, just like that. Jim said that lasted about 2 games. Because Jim had, in football, it's kind of a disease. It's called fumbleitis. Jim said, I got hit the first time and I coughed up that football right away. And after that, he bumped, the football coach got up with that, so very positive man. He said, you know what, Jim? You're going to be the fastest lineman ever. And that's what Jim played. Played his life. Track, he actually held some school records in track for quite some time. A lot of people didn't know that. So just those talks that time we had together, which was so important. I know when Jim was in the working world at Ford, one thing I found interesting, him and Kathy, as you know, every 3 or 4 years, moving around. So it's interesting when the real estate person with Kathy and Jim were looking for a house. The real estate person, okay, so let's get this straight so I find the right house. How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what do you need for a house? Kathy and Jim would say at the same time, we need a house that we can turn over in about 3 years very easily. That was the main criteria when we were buying a house. So now as we progressed, Jim was working career. One other thing, these people right here, anytime I'd ask him, and it was like open mic for Jim, I'd ask him about family, and he would just go on and on. His kids, in-laws, the grandkids. Oh my goodness. If I had to look at my watch and say, okay, I got about half hour, Jim. Tell me about the grandkids. He blew me out of the water. Half hour was never enough. Every one of them, he tell me what's special about him, what he thinks they can do, what he thinks they will do, everything about the grandkids. Everything about the grandkids. So after Jim retired, obviously he came down here, and it was kind of fun. It just met him for a few times. Justin and I went to Honor, Michigan. I'm sure everybody knows where Honor, Michigan is. If you haven't, you need to go there and check out those rockets. Awesome rockets. Cherry, all sorts of flavors. But anyway, we went there, and then they came to Honor. Just kind of cemented it. So now comes the hard part, okay? Jim, right, he's really into it, everything going his way, and he gets thrown a rotten curveball from cancer. I was very curious, to see how Jim would handle this. And at first there was a lot of, why me? I've done the stats, I've run the numbers, the chances of me getting cancer at this age are like 4%. We don't know what the numbers guy was, and but we just shrunk, we didn't know. Okay. So as Jim was going through this, obviously there were a lot of ups and downs, but when it came towards the end, we'd have talks, and he'd say, I hope I can present myself in honor so that people can learn from me how to handle tragedy. That was his main concern. Other people, not himself. One other thought he had was, he said, Ron, I need more time. I just need more time. I said, I don't think you and I have control of that, Jim. I think God's going to handle it. But I said, we want you to have peace. He said, yeah, that's fine, after I get more time. And I said, why more time? Why, after all you've done? And he said, because there's more to do. He always wanted to do more. So when he passed, it was just, we prayed that it was peaceful. Jim's dash, I just described Jim, a lot of things, Jim's dash. And now, the dash of his life, and again, check the picture for you. The dash of his life is completed. Chris talked about it, I talked about it. Jim's dash is complete. But one thing Chris mentioned, and I thought about this a lot, Jim's dash, as you'll see, born the dash, and when Jim passed, that's over. But anytime I look at that dash and that closing year, that's just a year on Earth, okay? And I believe, Kathy believes, most of you believe, that Jim is starting a brand new dash, okay? So that dash starts the minute, the second he passed from this earth. He's got a brand new dash, it's bigger, it's brighter, and it's the dash of heaven, okay? When Jim became a believer, both Jim and Kathy, I told people that is one of the best things that I have witnessed probably in the last 20 years. Chris said, it's like a God's miracle, it just took over. So now, I believe, and that's the only reason I'm up here, is because I believe Jim has that dash, that new dash started. Okay? And the great thing about that new dash of heaven, there's no end date. It's for eternity. So when you think of eternity, Jim's dashing eternity, I'll tell you what, as sad as this day is, I couldn't be any happier for Jim with this long dash on this journey of dash. So thank you, folks. Open mic. Anybody else like to say something? Come on up.
I'm going to build on your dash. Since this is a celebration for Jim, I wanted to keep it light and tell you more about the dash and what's going on. So when Jim left us on earth, he latched on to a passing comet that carried him to heaven. Upon entering the pearly gates, Jim went through an orientation. That's what he's doing right now. he's gone through an orientation where he viewed the Welcome to Heaven video featuring St. Peter. He explained that each soul experiences heaven in its own favorite way. For example, many Christians see nothing but angels playing harps and absolutely love every minute of it. But now Jim will be currently on golf courses, bike riding, and most importantly, playing pickleball, where he can enjoy all his outdoor activities. But Jim also has found piles and piles of income statements, balance sheets, tax forms, budgets, calculators. He has a lot to complete, and Jim is jumping for joy. Jim is also currently enjoying unlimited pizza, and that includes the unlimited ice cream machine and a bakery filled with every sweet dessert that ever existed. But Jim, your job on earth is done, but in heaven it is just starting. But know we will watch over Kathy for you. And I was blessed to have met you. I will miss that friendship. I will miss, do you have a minute? Thank you for putting up with me when I was always asking, what can I have some more money? So rest easy, my friend. I will miss you. I will miss our friendships. And I will miss, do you have a minute? So thank you. Is there anybody else?
I'm sorry, I hope you forgive me. We drove through Michigan. And I wrote two things down my phone. And I might need help from one of my nephews. Hi, I'm Jim's sister, Lori, from Jackson, Michigan. And I say that to honor my brother. When Jim would leave me a phone message, he would always say, "Hi, it's your brother Jim from Florida." Not sure why he said that, because I knew the sound of his voice, and in our adult life, we really knew where each other was all the time. But he always said, Jim, James Daniel, was the first child of Norma and James David. He was also the first of 15 grandchildren of Archie and Josephine Green. Excuse me. He was the anchor of the Westbrook family, and he was the anchor of the Green grandchildren. I'd like to share a bit about my life with my brother. First of all, as you've already heard, he was competitive. And I'm sure most of you know that. Whether it was playing games when we were kids, biking or golfing, playing poker here in the park, playing pickleball as an adult, or while doing financial work for Board Motor Credit or his own finances, there were many other competitive times for Jim, particularly a heated game of skip-up at their cottage in northern Michigan. During that card game, Kathy and I had to leave to make a family phone call. While Kathy and I were gone making that phone call, Jim and Steve stacked the deck so heavily in their favor that there was no way anybody could win other than Jim and Steve. The competitor in Jim started at an early age. As teenagers, Jim, our cousins, and I would sit in the basement of our aunt's house for hours and play Monopoly. Not surprisingly, Jim always wanted to be the banker. Jim was not Uncle Jim to our sons, Stephen and Daniel. He was Uncle Nemo. This nickname came about one summer while we were visiting at their cottage. I don't know if you know this, but Jim liked to mow grass. A lot. And our younger son wanted to mow along with his uncle using a toy wagon that they had. Daniel wanted to mow. He said, as Tomlin would, me, mow. So Jim was christened Uncle Mimo. Each time I think about Jim and Steve taking the pontoon out on their lake in Michigan with a sticky cup of Bloody Marys, I smile and chuckle. We just loved his zest for living. Jim worked hard and Jim lived a full life. He had a kind heart and a deep, deep soul. Jim was always someone you could count on for help in getting financial opinions, housing or building guidance, or of course, painting. You could count on him for just a straight, honest answer to any problem that you might want to chat with him about. We'll all miss Jim tremendously. There will be a hole in our lives that will never be filled. But we will always have great, great memories of him to make the days, weeks, and years ahead of us easier to navigate. Goodbye, Jim. We love you. And we will surely miss you. Thank you.
Well, Lord, I'm Joanne, Kathy's sister. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you for being Kathy. So I don't even know if you kids know this, but Jim, when Kathy and Jim were dating, Kathy was living in Detroit and Jim moved into our house when I was in high school. So he lived with my mom, dad, and me. And I was about 15, I think, and I thought it was pretty cool, like 15-year-olds do. And Jim didn't necessarily look like an athlete. Had I known he had all those track records, I would have proceeded differently. But I was running track and cross country, and I said, hey, we were talking about running. I said, oh, I could beat you. I could beat you, no problem. We'll run. It was a 3-mile down to the corner and back. So he's like, no, you don't want to do that. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Here was my mistake. He said, well, let's wager on it. I should have known if Jim is willing to wager, there is no wager. And we raced, and in the first quarter mile, I could tell, oh, this is going to be ugly. And I don't know, I didn't even see him finish. I was that far. He said, oh, I probably heard it. Yeah. And then he's like, no, you, because he was like, I found it as no, you, but I did. I took him out the only word I considered that. That was the guy he was, you know. The fact that he was willing to interact with us, you know, and yet taught me a valuable lesson at the same time, you know. It was just, you know, saw all the time, and was a joy to be around, always, always. Well, okay, 99% of the time. And, yeah. He's with them. Next.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jim's son-in-law, married to his middle daughter, Jennifer. Jim's been in my life for a really long time. We've been together since high school. I just wanted to share a few of the pieces of advice that I repeatedly got and learned from Jim throughout my time knowing him. First thing I want to share is probably from the second time I met him all the way through. He would always say, "Hey, Elliot, good to see you. Don't stay too late." So just be glad to see people and know when to go. Um, the next thing I want to share was he always used to say, "Make good decisions." So the Ghostbusters movie, make good decisions. I've tried to do that since knowing him. He's probably the most successful man I've ever met in my entire life in all things. I became a business major. I tried to be the walking calculator, follow his footsteps and forward. He was just awesome and inspirational, and he always will be. And then, sorry, my mind's blanking on the third thing. I used to talking to this many people at once, but he was amazing. I'm gonna miss him. I'm gonna try and keep learning from him. I have all these memories of you guys and what he said to you. And thank you.
Kathy Westbrook, Unit 2. Unit. I just want to thank all of you have had an influence on my husband's life in one way or another. And when we came down here to visit friends the first time, Jim and I both liked it here. But we still had our home that we built the house with the help of Steve, brother-in-law, and other friends, helped us build our dream retirement home in northern Michigan. But after coming down here to this community, and then we bought our first house down here, we rented, then we bought. We tried to drive back, always feeling like we're closing one house, opening another, closing up, moving. It got to be real quick, like in 2 years. This is too much. We talked about it, but neither of us told each other which place we would rather live. So we agreed, let's write it on a piece of paper and swap it. Because competitive, we couldn't just talk, no, let's make sure we didn't influence the other. We opened the paper to understand, we both, even though we built our dream retirement home, we both wanted to be down here. So thank you, community. This is an important community to both of us. And to my family, thanks. Within 3 minutes.
Else? Yeah, clear your cards. You want to wrap us up? So I'm a big baseball fan, and I love batting cleanup. Remember that I said baseball, but yeah, I'm here to clean up here at number 4, hit it last person or something special. And as I said before, Kathy said, you had a lot of words, so I thought we were going to go around twice. So I'll start, so we're going to wrap up here, okay? We're going to wrap up and we're going to go and have some eats. I want to mention, one of Jim's favorite spots was CC Pizza. Love the pizza. And I don't know whether you people eat at CC, but when you dig deep enough, like Jim did, which was fun, so you can eat next to nothing. I don't know, they didn't get it either. Honestly. Sorry, CC, but that's another thing. But anyways, CC's has been tremendous working with Kathy, okay? I mean, they've bent over backwards to make this something special for Kathy. Just want to say really appreciate it. So, before we leave here, I'll just say a prayer, and it'll be a prayer for the celebration of life, and it'll also be for double duty, it'll also
before we go in. So, Father God, first of all, thank you. Thank you for this group. Thank you for your presence. Without your presence, this group would not be here. We thank you, Father, for the food, but there's also so much more. Your presence here, okay? You're here with us now, you're here with us when we go home, you're here with us no matter what we're doing. And your presence means so much in that all you want from us is to just reach out once in a while and say, thank you, Father. Just remember the Father, okay? So, I guess, been big into this presence of God wherever you go, doesn't have to be in church on Sunday, you can do anything, pick up on fish and everything else. So, I leave you with that presence of God theme and enjoy the pizza. Thanks for coming.
If you could let the family go first. Yeah, they get first dibs. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.